Hey guys, Kirk here, and thank you for joining me on a new video on the channel. In this week's video we're going to be looking at paintable landscape layers. Essentially what I mean here is we're going to be creating a multitude of layers in which we could paint onto our landscape, and we'll be applying different textures to them layers as well. This video is going to heavily follow on from last week's video where we created a master material layer. If you've not seen that video, I would highly recommend you go check it out and follow that tutorial, and it will give you a better understanding in this week's video, if you get what I mean. If you already have a material layer and you just want to use that, but you want to know how to make them paintable on the landscape, then that's fine. You can still follow along and utilize the same process with your own material layer. If you're using a material or a landscape shader in which it's automatic, but you want to be able to paint those particular layers onto the landscape individually, I'll talk a little bit towards the end of the video about how you could do that. But for now we're just going to concentrate on utilizing last week's material layer to create a multitude of different layers to paint into our landscape. Before we get started, I want to thank everyone who has subscribed and liked my videos and donated. It's really going a long way to keep me going doing these videos. I do have a busy schedule in real life, but I do find time to do these videos for free for you guys. So I appreciate anyone who subscribes and likes, and I even more appreciate anyone who donates to the channel. If you do make a donation to the channel, I will give you a shout out in next week's video, and you will also have access to DMs with me on Discord if you make a donation. So yeah, let's sort of point that out. So yeah, let's get started with the video. So in last week's video we created our master material layer, which is here. As you can see, if I open this up, we have a full material layer, if you like. Got some placeholders in the textures with just the material name, and then you'll notice if you did follow last week's video that I have changed this a little bit. In last week's video we used what are called scalar parameters, which are these here, like so. And essentially what we did was we right clicked on each of these inputs and created a scalar parameter. During my time away I've opted out of doing that to keep the material layers more compact. And essentially all I have done is all these scalar parameters I've inputted into vector 4s. So if you hold a 4 on the keyboard and left click, you'll get what's called a vector 4. And if you right click and convert it to a parameter, and you could change the name of that parameter. So as you can see here, for my color overlay, I've changed the parameter name to material color overlay, and in brackets I put overlay intensity in alpha. As you can see there, it says overlay intensity, and that's just fed straight into the input for my material color overlay intensity. And the next one down, you can see I've got a material common options, and in brackets I've put contrast, roughness and normal. As you can see here, we've got them names in the red channel, green channel and blue channel, and I've just put a simple XX in a channel which is not used. And for the height blending, you can see I've got height options, contrast, intensity and add. So essentially what you need to do for each of them scalar parameters, as you can see here, you can pause the video and copy this all you like, that's completely fine. But what I've done is converted it to a parameter and named the parameter, and then inside that particular parameter you'll see at the bottom here, it might be closed up like that for you guys, but if you hit the drop down menu, and it might be like that, just hit that drop down menu. And in the relevant channels you've got red, green, blue and alpha, which are used here, red, green, blue and alpha. Just put the actual scalar parameter name into the individual channel name channels, and you can set the value here. This just enables the material layer to be more compact. If you would like me to do a little tutorial on this, how to do this, then leave it in the comments or ping me in Discord, and I'll feel free to do it, maybe in a short or something like that, as it is fairly easy to do. Okay, so with that being done, let's get moving on with our paintable layers. So as you can see in my landscape master material, I've got a grass A layer which I created in last week's video, and I've got a landscape layer blend node. You just right click and just type in landscape. Right, so you'll see there it says landscape layer blend node. I'm going to turn caps lock off, don't know why it's on. Just click on that and you'll get the landscape layer blend node. I'll showcase this working a bit later when I make the additions to the landscape layers. But for now, what I want to do is showcase creating new landscape layers based off our master material from last week's video. So what I would need to do is go back into the master folder, and on not the master layer logic, just the master layer, I'm going to left control and C, and that just copies it. And I'll come to my layers. You can see I've got a grass A here. I've got a copy of my master layer and also the textures inside. I'm going to come to layer, I'm going to go right click, new folder, I'm going to call this grass underscore B, like so. And the reason I'm keeping it with grass A and grass B, I may do a grass C as well, is essentially so I could change the textures on the fly. If I was to call each individual layer like long grass, short grass, dirt, gravel, then I may want to change that particular texture for that layer, and then the names would not coincide. So I generally leave like grass A, grass B, grass C, and then I would do like a dirt, gravel, and things like that. Okay, so now we've got our folder. I'm going to come inside our folder and just Control and V, and you'll see it's made a copy of our master material layer. And essentially what I want to do is just highlight it by clicking on it, F2. I'm going to call this grass underscore B underscore layer, like so. And now that I've made a copy of that master material layer, and now it's its own individual layer now called grass B. What I do need now is some textures, but just to make sure I don't duplicate the textures I've got in grass A, I'm just going to go and have a look which one it is. As you can see, it says albedo 4K, and then the initials at the end are TKYNEJER. And what I use, if you followed the series as a whole, Build World V2, you'll know that I utilise bridge, standalone, and not the integrated bridge, which you will find here, which is Quixel Bridge. I don't utilise that, I utilise it as standalone, so I can import particular textures that I am going to use within my landscape shader. So at the moment I'm using a albedo, roughness, normal map and displacement map. The displacement map is for blending when you paint the layers down, but I'll showcase that a little bit later on. So what I want to do is to come back to my layer, the grass B folder, right click and import. As you can see, I have a library full here in my storage drive of Quixel textures, and then as you can see I've got a multitude of different layers, but I want to grab another grassy like one. As you can see here, there's a long grass, and if I highlight over it, well, I can't highlight over it, if I make it bigger, you can see I've got TKYNEJER. So this particular set of textures are used in grass underscore A, so I'm not going to utilise them. So I'm going to find another one like this mossy grass. Looks quite a nice texture, and this is VCPOAJJS. So all I'm going to do is click my albedo, displacement, normal and roughness, and by using left control and just clicking on each texture, and then just click open. These textures will then import to this particular layer, and you can see it says texture normal 2K. Oh, this is a 2K. Well, that's not good. Well, anyway, we'll utilise it. Was imported as a normal map, and that's what you want to see. You'll see we're getting this little asterisk here, and that's essentially because we've not saved it. So if I come to the bottom here where it says 5 unsaved and click that, you'll see it'll ask me to save them textures. So if I click save selected, you'll see that little asterisk is gone now. So to create this material layer, keeping it individual, we would need to open this master material layer. You can see it's the same as our grass A layer and the master layer. All we have to do is to change the names of each parameter. This is probably one of the most important parts of creating individual layers and the most tedious. So yeah. It's quite annoying, but we've got to do it. So this is grass B underscore layer. So I'm going to come to my albedo texture, and I'm going to double click in the parameter name section, double click on material, and I can change this to grass space B. And all I'm doing is changing the material word for the grass B word. And essentially this allows the engine to read this as a separate layer. So if I left Control and C, because I'm going to use this word grass B multiple times, and I make a copy of that. And then in the group name I'm going to double click material, and then Control and V, and put grass B in there. And like I indicated in last week's video, where I'm using the word material in our parameters and groups, this is why. It's just so simple. It makes it more quicker to utilize the master material to then just rename it by double clicking on one word. Obviously some of them, like these long parameter names, can be quite tricky to get the material word, but I'll showcase that a little bit later. But you can see I've got grass B albedo texture. I'm going to click on the roughness and just do the same for that. Double click material, Control and V. Then for the normal texture, double click material, Control and V. And then for the height texture, double click, Control and V. And then what I could do is highlight them all and change the group. Because I changed the albedo texture first in the group name, you can see the grass B texture group name is already there. So I just click on that. And what I want to do now is assign our textures to that. So I've come to the content drawer. You can see our textures are here. Make sure you're in the folder grass B. And then we just click on the albedo, click the albedo texture, and then just click that little arrow, and it'll change that to the actual albedo map. You can see it looks weird at the minute, but I'll change that shortly. So I'll get the displacement. Make sure you click on grass B height texture, and then just click the arrow, put the displacement map. Another way you can do it is just click the actual parameter for the roughness. Click the content drawer and just grab the roughness by holding left click and applying that into the texture slot there. Do the same for normal. This is just another way you're getting the same result, like so. And what we need to do now, come to the material UVs. Just double click on material and you'll see it has just got it, even though it's gone off the parameter name bar. Control and V, change it to grass B. Do that for the group as well. Double click material, Control and V, grass B. What I am going to do here is change the near, mid and far tiling so we can actually see it better in our little preview window. But click that and go for 1100. You can see our texture is now showing up in our preview window. If you've done this and followed on from last week's video, you'll notice how if you enter that value in there, that the texture goes all weird. Essentially what I've done, and this is a fault of mine, and I apologise, is in last week's video, come here to my distant mask, you'll notice I had to input this towards the end, but what I did in last week's video is use a divide node. Right click, get a divide. You can see I use a divide node in last week's video. All I've done is changed it from multiply, and that's why I'm putting higher values in. If you want to stay the same as what I'm creating, I'd recommend coming into your distant mask function and changing to a multiply. If not, and you're quite happy with how it is, then feel free to leave small values in here like a 0.00026 and so on and so on. But for now I'm going to use multiply. In here I'm going to put a 650 and then maybe a 250, like so. We hit apply, make sure the group name's right, and I'm going to carry on now renaming this. So I'm going to double click material. As you can see, like I was stating before, it says overlay. It's highlighted overlay. We don't want that. All we want to do is highlight material. It's a bit fiddly, but you can get right to the end of the material word and just drag over it and then change it to grass B. Click on the next one. You can see it might do it again. That's right. And then just try your best to highlight it. As you can see, I've missed the L out. Just highlight that all. Control and V. Like so. Didn't like that as well. So just highlight the best you can, Control and V. And now they're all the same. What I want to do is make sure they're all in the same group. This is how you could patch your material layers as much as possible, so you can have a multitude of layers. I'm going to choose graspy options, and that essentially is a new layer for our landscape. Click save. I'm going to come to the landscape material. My graspy layer is going to go directly under my grass A layer. And on the landscape layer blend node, if you're using a different material layer, this will still work for you. But like advised, I'd advise you to go back and watch the previous video so you get a good auto save in 7 seconds for 0 items. It's a bit weird. So just click on your layer blend, the landscape layer blend node, hit the little plus icon, the drop down bar, and Control and V. But for this I'm going to add in the underscore just to keep everything the same. As you can see, this is grass underscore A, and I want it to be grass underscore B. And I'm going to change the blend type to height. If you're using, like I say, a different material layer that your height is not exposed in, then just keep that blend type set as weight blended, so you're painting on top of each individual layer, and it'll just keep you with one input. Your material layer will still work. Even mine will still work like that, but I have the height exposed. So I'm going to put height so I can blend together with height. So that's that grass B layer. For this tutorial, I'm going to showcase one more layer, changing it. So we get a multitude of different layers. For now, I can save that and shut down grass B. Come to my layers folder, go into the masters, left click on the master, Control and C, make a copy of that master. I'm going to create a new folder, so right click, new folder, and I shall call this dirt underscore A, like so. I'm going to double click on dirt A and then Control and V inside, and I've got a copy of this master material layer. Click on it, press F2 and change the name, so this is dirt underscore A underscore layer. Right, so, and I'm going to want some textures for this, so create the same as before, right click in your content folder, import, and we'll find a suitable texture for dirt A. I like the look of this. This is a 2K texture as well, so I'm not going to use that. Rocky ground 2K, rocky ground 2K. Wild grass, it's a 2K. Bloody hell, they're all 2K. Let's have a look. Forest floor, it's a 2K. Avid gravel ground, that's a 2K. Let's have a look at this. As you could see, oh, that's my experimental one. Yeah. Okay, do you know, I'll just go with the 2K rocky ground. Let's have a look at this one. Yeah, that'll do for the purposes of this tutorial. I'm going to click on albedo, hold left control, displacement, normal and roughness, and then just click open, ensuring that texture, normal 2K, blah 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 was imported as normal map. Click OK, that's fine. So now I've got my dirt A layer sorted with new textures. And I'm just going to double click my dirt A layer, and you can see it's exactly the same as our previous material layer, which is grass B, and we just need to change these names again. So double click material, I'm going to go dirt A albedo, and like before I'm going to highlight dirt A, left control and C, make a copy, go into the group name, double click, Control and V, dirt A textures. And essentially, like in the grass B layer, I've just got to go through all these parameters again and change the name of material to dirt A, sorry. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to speed up the video just while I change these names, and I'll come back when I'm changing the textures. Okay, so as you can see now, I've changed the name for all my scalar parameters, or vector 4 parameters if you like, and I've changed the group, and now all I need to do is apply these textures we just imported. So I'm going to click on Dirt A, Albedo, and add the Albedo texture in there, and then go to the Roughness texture, and then apply our Roughness texture in there, and then we want our Normal. Click on Normal. You'll see the 3D viewport changes when I add this Normal, so it gives it a bit more quality. And then the Height texture, which is our Displacement texture, sorry. Alright, so, and that's it, that's that material layer applied. Hit save, and we can actually close that because I know this will work. Go to the content drawer and our Dirt A layer function we just created, add that in. Then we can come to our landscape layer blend, add a new layer blend, call this Dirt A. Like the other layers, I'm going to put an underscore in there just to keep everything straight and symmetrical. And just simply drag from the material into Dirt A layer, and Height Dirt A, drag from our height. Like I said before, if you're just using a material layer with just the one output, just put it into the layer output, and these now will be paintable. If I hit apply with our master material, our landscape, hit save, come to the viewport again. What I want to do now, these next steps are quite important because sometimes it works and sometimes it won't. Prior to the video, I've been on and made it so I'm going to get an error so I can showcase fixing the error. So now all our material layers that we're going to be painting with in our landscape shader, it's that simple. If you're using a automatic landscape shader, no matter what kind of landscape shader it is, 9 times out of 10 you will be using a landscape layer blend node. Your top layer may say auto on it and be dragged off into another function. You would need to deep dive into that material function and find the actual material layers that are used in that automatic function, or the logic for that automatic section, and find the material layers, and then just copy the material layers like we did with the master one, and just apply them here where your landscape layer blend is, add the additional layers that you would need, and then apply them layers to the landscape layer blend node. So the material layers in your automatic function will be able to be painted onto here as well. There is another way of doing it through your auto function, but it is a lot of messing around. You may as well just duplicate them. It does add extra infringements to your landscape shader, but if you need that kind of paintable thing going on, then I would recommend doing that way. Okay, so I'm going to hit apply, come back to the world, and what we're going to do now is hit on the landscape mode, hit the drop down, click on landscape, and I hope this hasn't worked. Just let it build. So, oh no, it has worked, which is a real shame. That's a duplication, and there's not one in there. Okay, so as you can see, it's worked. You may come in here, depending on the material you're using or wherever. If you're following along with this series, Build Worlds V2, then you'll have the same outcome as me, hopefully, if you've named all your parameters right. If not, you'll get errors at some point. But you may have a layer there that's got a bright pink question mark in the face of it where the texture is. You may have a bright pink question mark. You would simply have to come to the right hand side and click on delete layer, and that should delete the layer. If your layers are not showing up like mine are at the minute, which is a shame because I was kind of hoping they weren't, but if they're not showing up, I'd recommend coming out of landscape mode, saving your work so far, like hard saving so far, and then coming to file, new level, click on basic, and then open that basic layer level and save it any random place you want, and then come to file, recent levels, and click on your level that you're working in now. If you see here, I've already got one, and it's called reset map. If I click on it, it'll just reset out, and it's just a basic level like I said here, the basic template. And then all I have to do is come back in recent levels and choose the map I've just been working on, like so. Just give it a second to load. Now if you get these errors, don't worry about that. And you can see it spawned me right up here to my details panel. I know my second menu down is over there. I'm going to press F on him and zoom right into him, like so. There you go. Now the level's fully loaded. We're all ready to go. Okay, so if I come to landscape mode again, I can't paint with these particular layers. That's because I've got a layer set up in my edit layers. And you can see I've got landscape material there. Just let my engine catch up a little bit. And there you go. I could click on that and now I can paint. It may not be the case for you if you've not been following along with the series. But now, anyway, we've got our material layers here, our new ones. You can see I cannot paint with this layer. As you can see there, it says the layer has no layer info assigned yet. You must create or assign a layer info before you can paint this layer. So to do that, just click on the layer you want to assign the layer info to and click this create layer info. Just hit that and choose white blended layer. If I put that in there, that's fine. It'll open up this drop down menu, save it to any folder you want. It will create one called shared assets if you don't select one. Hit save, and there you see I've got my grass bead layer info in there. This one here, this is what I created earlier to try and get that error, but it didn't work. So I could just go ahead and delete that one. Force delete it. Like so. Okay, now I've done the grass bead. Do dirt as well. Click on the little plus icon, white blended layer. Save it into there. Click save. You can see now I've got a dirt layer info. And now you can still see it's red. That's because I've got no layer selected. So what you need to do to paint is, I'll zoom out a little bit. Click on grass A. If I paint here, you can see nothing's happening because that's the layer that's filled out. If I click on grass B, this is the grass B texture we created earlier on. Just paint down, and you can see there it's starting to paint this fresh new layer. Doesn't look like it, but it is, I think. Let's increase that strength, increase the brush size, and zoom out a bit more. You can see now I'm circling where it has gone, but because the grass textures are near enough the same, if I do that now, you can clearly see that different layers being painted down onto the surface. As you can see, they're not that far in between actually. I'm just wondering now if I've got the same texture in there, but one's got a bit more contrast than the other. Let's go for this dirt A. Just paint down with this dirt A. You can see there now I'm getting this applied in there, which is grand, like so. As you can see, we've got quite a nice blend in there. You can reduce that brush size if you want, really small. You can make a little pathway here like this, which is fine and dandy. And essentially that is how you create paintable layers in your landscape layer. I just want to check something out. It's nice. You can see it's leaving funny lines. This is kind of normal. If I come to the lit mode, that's a wireframe. You can see the wireframe on the landscape. Each individual point on this landscape, like this area here, is a vertice on this landscape, and that's what this paint layer needs to paint down with. So sometimes it will look like they're weird like that. But with this kind of setup we're using in this series, we can open our build worlds, landscape shader. If I open the material instance, so as you can see, when you create your material, landscape material with them vector 4 scalar parameters, you can see how compact it gets there. As you can see, I've got dirt A options, and then I've got grass A options, and down here I've got grass B options. If I come to and expose the dirt A height options. You can see I've got 0.1 in each of them. As you can see here, there's quite the error actually. I've got contrast, roughness and normal. Just let me come to the dirty. As you can see, essentially when I created this, I've duplicated that and not changed the name. I'll just quickly do that now. So for this one, let me open my master material layer, just to make sure. As you can see, I did that wrong when I created the master material layer. So all I have to do is to change this name in here, but I would have to go into each individual one and change the name. I'm not going to do that right now, which is a shame. Essentially what you could do is open it up. You can see here I've got height, contrast, intensity and add. So I've got my contrast already started, so I'm just going to change this to intensity and then add. So hit apply, save. You can see now I've got contrast in my material instance. I've got contrast, intensity and add in there. If I come back into here and just make some changes to these, so you can see now how this blend is happening with the dirt. You can see now it's overtaken a little bit, which I think is quite nice. If I multiply that, you can see there my add is pushing away that material layer. If I increase the contrast, it brings more of a blend from the grass. And then intensity, increase that a bit more, and it just creates more of a blend here. If I just increase that intensity a bit more, you can see that the dirt layer is coming through the grass there quite nicely. As you can see, increase that intensity. I'm going to give that a 6 value. And then for the contrast, you can reduce that, and you can see this is now making an addition with the grass. But if I increase it, it brings it back a bit. As you can see, if I reduce it a little bit, like so, you're getting this showing around the side, as you can see here, which is quite a nice addition. I can add more and reduce that multiplier, and that brings the grass into the rock. As you can see, guys, that's quite a nice blend. I can come down to my grass A and change these values as well, and this will make additional changes to this. As you can see, my grass A now is completely overcoming that. If I increase the roughness, it's completely, again, just having a play about with them values is giving a nice blend on here. If I reduce that roughness value, reduce the contrast, increase the contrast, there you go. So it's nice, it's quite a nice way you can play around with these blending values. As you can see, guys, you're getting a nice blend based off that height map. Like I stated at the beginning of the video, it's quite important if you follow along with the previous video in which we are blending our material layers based off height. So yeah, so essentially what we've got here, guys, is paintable layers on our landscape which are going to blend really nicely together. I will have a look into this. That texture, you can see it's a different texture by the outline here, but it kind of looks, I think it is the same texture. Let me just have a look, actually. I might as well just have a look while I'm here. Grass B. So VCP OAJS. Grass A. No, it's a completely different one. I'm going to shut that down. Just give us a sec. This tutorial's going a little bit longer than I thought it would, but never mind. So I'm going to go to landscape. Essentially what you can do here, guys, you can see grass A is there. They must just look similar. If I right click on grass A and click fill layer, it'll just get rid of all these painted bits I've done, like so. As you can see from the image, grass B it looks different. So if I paint down here, give it a bit more, or 2 on the intensity. Let's do this. Yeah, it kinda looks the same. Maybe it's to do with the blending values. I don't know. Probably the blending values on height. But as you can see, I've got my dirt layer now, and the beauty of this is you could do it for as many layers as you want within your landscape layer here. Obviously, the more layers you add, the more instructions you add here. At the moment, the base pass is 208, which is very good for 3 layers. But your vertex shader, that's quite good as well, which is great. Okay, so up to now, that's how you get paintable layers onto your landscape. Get a nice blend between that dirt and grass, which is great. So yeah, I apologise if this video is long. I don't know how long it is until I finish recording it. So I apologise for that, but I hope you've learned something good and useful. If you did, hit that subscribe button and that like button, and feel free to make a donation to help the cause of the channel and upgrade my gear. And I shall, after the autosave is complete, see you in the next video, guys. Thank you very much. Bye bye.